What's up, guys? It's John with National Sports Entertainment, and as promised, I wanted to go into some narratives. I know it's early in the season, but we have ourselves some narratives. Now, it's been hard enough for me to look into the metrics, so the more you guys could, and I'm not asking you guys to do anything you don't want to do, but for those that comment, like, hey, I noticed this, or hey, did you find this interesting? Regarding, especially if you have a favorite team, please just post in the comments what you're noticing about your favorite team, whatever it may be, because I can't watch all these games. But what's nice is when I have, for example, Estrada is always telling me things about Phoenix and about Arizona, and then I have other people. Sean Sweeney hits me up with Pittsburgh information. I follow the Blazers. I follow Luka. So there's a couple teams I follow. So if we're all following teams, we're going to have a really good idea on these. But I want to go into narratives. And right before I do, I want to since last video was a little indecisive because I had just woken up. I wasn't sure exactly who I liked, and I had to think everything over. So this is essentially where we stand. These are from the other night, obviously. And last night we started it off with this one. We had Detroit +6. My gut was actually saying Wizards. In my video, I said I like the Wizards money line, but I'm not one to make excuses. I thought on it, and I did think they were going to give it a close, feisty game for Jaden Ivey. So that didn't happen. So I like the Magic enough, as I said, to do a clean double up on them with the 8 points. Not being surprised that they even win. We lost the Dallas Clippers parlay, and I thought about which one to make a double up of, and as you can see, I have changed my mind. We're still betting Toronto, but something was brought to my attention that, in my opinion, makes the Lakers too good to pass up on as a second leg here. So I'm going to have to go ahead and add $25 to the Lakers. Luckily, I hadn't bet Toronto yet because the money lines weren't open. Now, the reason I am going to the Lakers, and this is going to segue right into our first narrative. There's about 3 that I've noticed. But I went with the Lakers for a very good reason. And then we lost sequence 20, which was Dallas under 214. We're going to be doing a next leg there. I just don't like to open up with all second legs. I like to kind of feel out the 7 o'clock games. So Toronto's going to be a new sequence. We're just going to go ahead and make that a $25 sequence. So as of now, I am firm on the Lakers plus. Just so you know, I'm buying points on this because they're good at shaving in case they don't. But I like the Lakers. I think right now they're getting 5.5. So I like the Lakers +7. Anywhere between 7 and 8 is fine. You can buy more if you're a teaser person. That wouldn't hurt. But you also want to get pretty good odds. So it's going to be closer to like 60-something. That's probably my guess, but we'll see because I'm buying about a point here. Now, there's a reason I took the Lakers. And here's the other ones. Magic, as I said. So we got Lakers. And I'll go into the Heat Blazers one in a minute. I just wanted to show the sequences for people that want to know which ones to bet the second legs on. I know a lot of times at the beginning, every single pick, I was literally going in order, showing you guys. And I want to get back to that. It's just really hard when I'm having a hard enough time following these games. Believe it or not, updating this takes a while. It's tedious. But I will because I want everyone to see my exact picks as you have been from the beginning. Now, I want to get to the narratives. So why do I love the Lakers tonight now when I wasn't too sure earlier? Well, a certain individual is doubtful. And that was brought to my attention, and I'm hoping that he doesn't play. I really am. Because hamstring doubtful, perfect. So I'm glad he's not. I hope he's okay, is what I'll say. I don't think these injuries are real, but in case they are, I never want to see anybody get hurt. And to be honest, I always liked Russell Westbrook. It seems like he's just been the butt of the jokes for the league now for 15 years, however long he's been playing. And I just don't think it's right. The guy has been amazing, and I don't know why they decided to just do this with him where they end his career like he's a complete bum. But anyway, that's the first narrative. Westbrook's a bum. And it's, I think, a false narrative. I think it's easy to pile up on him because nobody defends him. But Pat Bev brought this up himself. He said, how come nobody treats Chris Paul this way when he screws up? How come the guy can't win a finals in all his whole career? He's terrible in the clutch, blows games. Nobody ever holds him accountable. He's Mr. NBA. Meanwhile, we have Russ getting so much hate. And you'll see this happen with certain players. Now, the reason I like the Lakers, probably to win tonight, but I'll take them to cover, is because Russ isn't playing. And I've been saying it all year. They've been pushing the narrative that Russ needs to go. So, what a better way to solidify that point than by having the Lakers look like a cohesive unit without Russ. So you'll probably have Pat Bev, maybe Austin Reeves will start. Lonnie Walker's been looking great. So I wouldn't be surprised if Bev ran the point guard position and they went with him, Walker, James, Davis, and whoever else they want to stick in there. But I just think it makes sense that the Lakers win this game with a limited Westbrook or without him. You know that's going to be the talk. There's no story if they lose again. So I love this game. I like it as a second leg now because Westbrook's not playing. Now that's the narrative. So what's the end game with this narrative? Well, they started it last year. Last year they began it by saying he needs to get traded, and they also happened to be all over another individual saying he needed to be traded. And of course I'm talking about Kyrie. So to me, what makes more sense, and I said this a few times already, but you trade Kyrie for for Russell, and we can have our NBA version of the four brothers. We can have four brothers reunited, played on different teams for years, been moved around the league, and now they're going to be back with their roots. Russ and KD, along with LeBron and LeBron and Kyrie. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow they got the Sixers involved and Harden wound up joining the crew, because this is how WWE, like the NBA, is becoming. But that's the first narrative I've noticed, is 100% Russ is going, and most likely for Kyrie, because it'll just bring back nostalgia for people. And that's essentially it. A third team will get involved to make it a 3-team trade. That's how they're able to explain the caps. The only reason they do these 3-team trades is so people don't question why the Lakers are able to somehow have the cap to support all these guys and then trade them away a year later. Now, that's basically all that narrative is. Just watch how bad they pile on Westbrook and watch how much they talk up the other players that are replacing him. So the second narrative I've noticed this year, and this one happened yesterday. So yesterday before the game, we had something to the effect of fans awaiting the long Western Conference Finals matchup that never happened because, Luka spoiled it. So people have been looking forward to these two teams playing for a year now. So beforehand, they were already pumping it up. And something very interesting happened in the game, which makes me believe that my theory is correct. In the game, you probably know, we had a quote fight between Klay Thompson and what's his name? Booker. Okay, Booker, the same guy that was getting Luka all riled up. So you can see what they're doing with Booker. They're making him a little bit of a villain. He's a heel. I would call him a heel by WWE standards. I think he's not a guy that everyone loves, but the guy's talented. So anyway, I already went into why they won. But what's interesting is while they were going back and forth, Booker at some point said, he didn't say like, I'll see you later in the year. These guys play many times this year. He actually went out of his way to say, we'll see what happens when we're playing in the playoffs, or we'll see what happens when we're playing and it's not the regular season. I'm trying to see if it's in this article. It's probably not. But he said it to Booker, which makes me very interested because it's almost like they're just telling us right now, these guys are going to be meeting in the playoffs and to expect it. So by knowing that, we know a few things. A, we know either both of them are going to win in the first round, which is great. So That's just cheese guy. Yes, Luka, Jimmy Butler. Who else does this? There's a handful of players. DeRozan does it. They will be getting to the basket at ease. They will be doing whatever they want. And then for some reason, they all decide with about 3-4 seconds left, they're going to take it to the left key where you have nowhere to go because you're being ran out of bounds and try some ridiculous fadeaway three that barely grazes the rim. This is what I meant in my last video when I said Luka looked like he did amazing on paper. But if you really watched his playmaking, that last play of the game, there was no excuse for him not to cut to the middle. And at the very worst, he had himself a mid-range jumper that would have been contested, but not a fadeaway three-pointer. That's not his strong suit. He makes them when he's winning. He can take those shots and hit them and get people fired up. That's not a last game of the season shot. I saw a literal repeat because if you go back and watch, I think it was game 2, maybe game 3 of the Hawks versus it might have even been the first game. It was in Atlanta, so I don't know what game. I don't think it was the first game. But whatever game it was, Jimmy Butler decides I'm going to, despite having 42 points and killing it, on this last play, I'm going to go to the left wing and shoot a deep three-pointer. It looked like a mirror image of what Luka decided to do. So not to get off topic, but I just saw that comment, and I could not agree more. No excuse for that, and that is not the first time Luka's done it. And as I had said before, I didn't even see the three-pointer when I brought up how he often misses off the front of the rim. It's not on accident. You know, when you're missing off the front of the rim and you're shooting line drives, it's pretty indicative of a person that might not care too much about getting that friendly roll, especially in a league where I think they use magnets. So, yeah, Luka is not – he's very smart. So you can't say, oh, well, you know, there's only 2.5 seconds. He didn't know what to do. No, he went to the worst spot on the court and took the worst shot you could take. So that's that. Back to this. They are setting up a Warriors-Suns, not even a rivalry match. It hasn't happened yet, but the match that everybody wanted. I don't think everybody wanted it, but it's the one that was being pushed. So we're definitely going to see these guys in the playoffs, which leaves us with one of two questions. Are they going to both beat their first-round opponents? Will Golden State beat a team like Portland and the Suns will beat a team like the Grizzlies and they'll meet up? Or are they going to meet up in the first round because they're probably not going to be top seeds? I see them as 3 and 6 or 4 and 5 seeds meeting up in the first round. To me, that'd be a great way to explain one of these teams being eliminated early. Because again, you can't have the Warriors are not repeating. I can say it over and over again. They are a complete red herring. They are not repeating, so we know they're not. And I highly doubt the Suns are. So, or I doubt they're going again. So, I feel like this matchup's just going to be an excuse to get one of these teams off the table, and then Luka or the Clippers will probably wind up beating the winner. And then you know how I feel about the Blazers. I have the Blazers meeting the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals. I don't think it's Luka's year yet, but we'll see. But that's the second narrative I noticed, is they're already setting up Warriors-Suns, which means they're going to be doing this with more than just this team. They'll be doing it with Luka and Ja. They'll be doing it with, and you'll just see it develop through the year. But what I liked was Booker didn't even mince words. He came right out and said, let's see when we're not in the regular season. This is 4 games into the year. This isn't like we're halfway through the year and we know who's doing what. These guys don't know they're making the playoffs and playing each other, but apparently they do. So that's the second narrative I noticed, was just Warriors-Suns. They're setting it up so when they finally meet in the playoffs, it'll be interesting. It's also going to make all their future matchups very interesting. And then the last narrative I noticed is, and this is more like WWE selling, and it's not a giant narrative, it's nothing new, but it's announcers getting audibly excited when players like Panchero, players like Jabari, players, if he was playing Chet Holmgren, any of these top rookies, they're doing it for Sharp. I love Sharp, but every little thing he's doing, they're acting like he's the best. They're really pushing these rookies. They're pushing the young guys. Oh, Pablo's doing these things, and it's the first time since LeBron, and oh, Shadon Sharp came out of nowhere, the first guy to not play in college and do this well. All these different things. So they're pushing the individual players as superstars way more than they're pushing teams. Like, if you look at any team, you have a few. Like, even the Pelicans, a team that is really deep with a lot of cool players like Alvarado, and they're really just pushing, especially you'll see as the season develops, Ingram and Zion. Ingram was really the biggest draw last year. He was the guy that out of nowhere couldn't be stopped. Now all of a sudden he's back to being average. But it's pushing the individual players that I noticed, and it's definitely not going like Luka. I mean, again, he was a casualty for his team. I don't care what the stats say. If he makes a few three-pointers and again, he shouldn't be taking this many three-pointers. But if you look at Dinwiddie's production compared to Luka's, it's not even close, offensively and defensively. So, but they push Luka. Oh man, this one-man show is killing it. Meanwhile, poor Dinwiddie is playing just as good, if not better. I mean, that plus-minus is very misleading because it had nothing to do with him being in the game. It was literally just when Daniels and a few other guys were just raining threes. But it's just very telling to me when they have Doncic as this guy that carried the team when it really wasn't. Wood played well, and Dinwiddie played very well. Now, the other guys missed shots, that's fine, but it's just another narrative that I expect we can listen to all year. And it's funny because there's another guy that's basically doing the same exact thing, but they're not pushing the narrative. And the other guy is Ja Morant. Ja Morant's doing the same thing, and it's just like Luka because when he's in, he's unstoppable. He doesn't have a crazy supporting cast. But for some reason, they're acting like Dinwiddie is a nobody. They're acting like Wood is average. But on the other end, they're acting like Jaren Jackson Jr. is just a phenom. And I know he's not playing right now. They're acting like Dillon Brooks is the best defensive player in the game. They're acting like Desmond Bane is unstoppable. And I think they're doing that on purpose because they like Ja, but they want the Grizzlies to look more like a team, whereas they want Luka to look like LeBron did years ago, where it's all Luka. So even though Dinwiddie's putting up great numbers, I mean, gosh, he's getting 20-plus points a game, and he's also going on runs when Luka's on the bench, and he's actually getting the team back in it, or he's extending leads. He's been doing it all year. He did it in the playoffs last year. That's why I said they didn't need Brunson. So I've noticed that narrative, this Luka magic. I think we're really going to be... That's why he's winning MVP. You could lock it in now. You try and find me somebody that you think is going to win it over him, and I will tell you why they won't. And the only people even in the conversation right now are going to be Embiid and Giannis. And I just don't see either of them winning it over Luka. Again, they're making this whole team about Luka. So this is another one that is going to let us know what's happening in the playoffs, because we're probably going to get the Luka versus the Clippers grudge match, but we'll probably see the same result, especially if it's in the conference finals. Now, like I said, I have my opinion on the Blazers, but they're really pushing, hey, if Luka had a little bit of help, he would have beat the Clippers, or if he had a little bit of help, he would have made it farther. So I think they're trying to push, again, it's all Luka, but this time he has a, quote, little bit of help, which, again, Finney-Smith, Bullock, Dinwiddie, they're lights out shooters. These guys aren't scrubs, especially once they get Hardaway healthy and playing. I just don't see how they're pushing this as an only Luka team. But that's fine. If they want to do that, that's the story. And we can just kind of look at the matchups going forward to know which games Luka's going to win. Because if he's going up against... It's kind of like Chris Paul, in my opinion. If he's going into the Lions den, then I feel like there's a better chance he wins because it fits the story. Luka, just like he beat the Suns, Luka carried his team over the Suns. They ignored the fact that Bullock, Finney-Smith, Dinwiddie, Kleber all couldn't miss three-pointers and were shooting the lights out. They focused right in on just Luka. He did it all. Interesting score, by the way, too. But, yeah, so this narrative is, and again, these narratives are mostly ones I've been following. So that's how I know that they're going to keep this up with Luka, that he's doing this all himself. But watch him closely. Watch his defense. Watch how he reacts with his laughing and smiling when they're losing. And more importantly, watch the shots he takes, these three-pointers, and tell me if he took 2 or 3 less three-pointers, if they might have won this game. So, this 37 points is great, but then if we're evening it out with 2 for 13 three-pointers, he cost his team, again, if he shoots what he should shoot, let's say 5 for 13, 4 for 13, he just cost his team 12 to 15 points. And then if you go to the free throw line, he was actually the worst guy on his team, besides JaVale McGee. So Luka Doncic is the worst free throw shooter on Dallas outside of JaVale McGee. And again, this isn't a one-time thing. This guy shoots like 70% from the line. So this isn't an accident. And I know I talked about it in my last video. I only brought it up because it was brought up by Cheese Guy, and it's just so true. So I would expect these 3 narratives. Russell Westbrook sucks. That's why they're going to win tonight, because he's not playing. And they're going to trade him probably for Kyrie, which ties into the second narrative that the Brooklyn Nets aren't clicking with Kyrie. They need somebody else, probably Russ. And then the next one is the Suns and the sorry, I'm getting my teams mixed up. The Suns and the Golden State Warriors. I really see the Booker, Klay Thompson, rivalry. I can already see Game 6. Oh, it's Game 6. Who's going to come up? Is it going to be Game 6 Klay? So I can already see that, and they've already started that narrative. And the other one is the Luka Magic taking over the league by himself. Meanwhile, he's really not playing as good as people think. Now, there's another narrative I noticed, and I do have the Sixers winning tonight. But the one thing I'm not loving is the fact that it goes against the narrative I have. And the narrative I have is basically they're going to say Doc Rivers needs to go. And let me see if there's any articles on Doc Rivers, because I haven't looked into them. But last year they started this whole thing that Doc needs to go. So they already got it going on. There are league chatters about Doc Rivers' future. Okay, Doc wants to add another guy. They want to make it easier for Embiid and Harden. The winless Sixers are coming up empty. PJ Tucker has wake-up call. Okay, so it's not all about Doc. But it is interesting the very first article is talking about Doc possibly being moved. And again, it's very early in the season. So I think in about a week, we're going to see about half of these articles being Doc Rivers needs to go. They started this in the playoffs. They said he shouldn't have started Embiid, and he should have taken him out when they were definitely going to beat the Raptors, and all these different things. And then, of course, sure enough, they wound up losing. And then afterwards, they said, how good is Doc really? Does he still have it? Et cetera, et cetera. So that's something I do expect to happen is the Sixers to get off to an average start or a below average start. And just like we're seeing Russell Westbrook thrown under the bus, in this case, it's going to be Doc. I would not be surprised if mid-season they did something with Doc. And it's pretty unprecedented in basketball with a coach like Doc. But they're pushing it. Like the first article's there. And again, I didn't look for that. I just now I did. But I mean, before, the only reason I thought that they were going to be maybe putting those kind of articles out is because the way they were acting after he lost in the playoffs. And they were saying how with the Clippers, all these different teams, he routinely is failing with good players. So it would make sense that they have a good season, but that he doesn't cut it. So maybe that's too much. Maybe he doesn't get fired mid-season, but I can certainly see them eking in the playoffs and really amping up the does Doc still have it narrative. Now, maybe they're talking about it because maybe he's going to win. I have a very interesting theory on the Sixers. Just putting it out there, this is the 76th year of the NBA. So it's not a guarantee, but the Philadelphia Warriors won the first year, and then obviously the Warriors won last year. So I think Philadelphia winning on the 70-60 would make sense. But for that to happen, there has to be a narrative. And the narrative is either going to be they're going to question Doc all year long and he's going to get it done, or he's just going to do bad and get bumped. So I'm not sure, but what I am sure of is I do think the Sixers win this game. And like I had said, it's because when it's falling on the coach, it's not like the Lakers where you have these players every game just playing like trash. When it's falling on the coach, they're going to win a lot of games, but they're going to lose important games. There's going to be bad decisions made that cost them the playoffs like last year with Embiid. And that's the stuff I'm going to be looking for with Doc going forward. So those are just some narratives. If you're a fan of the Sixers or a fan of the Nets, like any of these teams, maybe you'll find that interesting. But that's just some of the stuff I've noticed very early in the season. And I know a lot of this stuff I cover in my bets, but I wanted to just make a separate video going into what I'm seeing. Like, I think they're pushing the Knicks. I think they're pushing Washington. There's a lot of the Banchero. It's obvious they're pushing him to have almost as good a rookie year as LeBron did, maybe even about the same. And I find it interesting they're playing the Cavs here, which is another reason I think he might break that streak of 0-4, against the Cavs, who had the last great rookie. So a lot of it adds up, and it's very interesting to me. But a lot of times I tend to kind of go all over the place. It's just because I'm trying to cover so much. But I wanted to hit those narratives to see if you guys agreed with me, if you noticed the same thing out of Luka, his numbers being a lot better than his play, or if you noticed the Russell inevitable trade definitely going to happen, or Doc. If you think that, it does seem like they're going to do something with Doc. I'd be curious just to see what you guys think, because of course a lot of these can be reaches, but I only really got back into watching sports during the playoffs of last year's basketball. That's why I believe I have a little bit more knowledge with basketball than football, because it's been years since I've watched football. I'm just getting back into it this year, whereas basketball, I got back into it at the end of last year. So these narratives have kind of just picked up where they left off, and that's what I love about it. So that's what I like. Now, like I said, I know I go all over the place a lot of times, but instead of putting out another video just for the sake of making it, I just wanted to go into, now that I was able to see that Westbrook's not playing, I was able to think about things pretty thoroughly. I wanted to go into exactly who I like in these games. So, we already know I like the Magic for our second leg of the Detroit loss. That's fine. I already explained that. I love the Lakers now because Westbrook's on the bench. I think this is, if you ask me for my lock of the night, it would be this game +7. I just think without Westbrook, they play way better because that's the narrative. I think Toronto wins a very close game. I took them on the money line. I made them a first sequence because I could see this one going either way, but I'm leaning Toronto because I do believe that they want to set the message that, again, Doc really isn't, he doesn't have this team together. He needs to figure something out. And you see the articles already talking about him, talking about they got to add somebody into the rotation. So I think they lose in Toronto, and then maybe they make a trade or something small happens and they get a little bit of a run going, but I don't think it happens against the Raptors. Also, I think there's going to be much more public money on the Sixers getting even odds. So those are all the picks I have. I did pick the Phillies, by the way, a couple days ago, if you didn't remember. I did go with them. And then for the Blazers Heat, again, this one is so tough because I really like the Blazers this year, but I am going to stick to my metric, and I'm going to go ahead and say that the Blazers lose. So I'm going to take the Heat money line. It's going to be our first sequence. So it's just going to be about 27 to 125. And it's a night game, so obviously if something comes up, we could change it or something, or if we need to make it a second leg, we can. I probably won't because I don't want to fade Portland on a second leg. But I just wanted to get that out there. And then the last one that I wasn't too sure of was the Nets-Bucks. And here's my problem with the Nets Bucks. I still don't know if they are going to push that the Nets suck and then, they need to trade. Again, them and the Lakers would both be 1-4. If what I'm thinking happens, the Lakers, 1-3. If the Lakers win and the Nets lose. But I do think that they're just going to have the Bucks win at home here. Even if there's a lot of public money on them, to me it just makes sense. So I'm going to do the Bucks -2. I'm going to wind up buying a couple points. And like I said, I wanted to take the Nets because it seemed like it could be a trap and there's going to be a lot of public money on the Bucks. But I made that mistake with the Grizzlies. And I think it makes more sense that the Nets put over Giannis. Not that he needs to be put over anymore, but just show that he is the best in the East by a country mile. And I think the Bucks win. I think they cover the 4, but I'll probably buy it down to about 2, just because I could see that being a nice little trap where they win like a 2 or 3 point game, and then Vegas double clips people. But this one isn't one I love. It's not. That's why it's a first leg. But I am just going to stick with the narrative now instead of always betting traps. Yes, they have traps. We saw them yesterday. But they also want to push narratives. And I think the narrative that the Nets are not on the same tier as the Bucks because they have to make a trade, and most likely that trade being Kyrie, I think that's exactly what makes sense for tonight. So that's one where, they can get a trap with the Hawks. They could get a trap with a lot of these teams. They can get a trap with the Rockets winning again. So every game isn't going to be a trap. And with it being on ESPN, I think if you notice, who's both playing on ESPN? Nets, Lakers. Those are the 2 games. That's the lineup. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's so people can see the Nets look like crap and the Lakers look good without Westbrook. Now, I could be wrong, but the fact that they're on ESPN makes me more confident with the Bucks and with the Lakers to cover. So that's all my picks except one final one, and that one is sequence 24. So here we have sequence 23. And I know this is a little redundant, but I'd rather type the text. I'd rather you guys be able to see every little thing I'm doing than it be the other way around. And maybe I didn't show exactly which leg I'm making every pick. So for sequence 24, I do like 2 money line parlays. I like the Knicks. I was looking at the Knicks Charlotte, and I thought, Charlotte could be an upset. But then I was looking at it, and I said, they really need to establish the Knicks as a threat. And starting them off 2-2 is not going to do that. So I like the Knicks, and another team that I know they want to establish as a threat, because they definitely want to make it seem like this team can make a run in the playoffs, is Minnesota. So I do have the Knicks and the Wolves on the money line, both. Now, of course, they're both about 3-1 favorites. So on this one, 30 is going to win you about 20, just so you know. Just like buying the points on the Bucks. And I know in a lot of cases it seems like, wow, that's a lot to win a little. But at the end of the day, the reason I'm doing it is because I'm playing the odds. We have multiple legs. So yeah, I'm going to pick a more favorable odd and pay a little more. Or pick a money line of 2 teams that I think are going to definitely win versus trying to get a 2 for 1 or trying to get the best payout on every individual bet. So I hope this wasn't too long for you guys. I don't like to bore you, but I also never know when I'm going to be able to make my next video. I always try and get at least one out a day, but I wanted to go into every single game that I am picking. So now you know every team I'm picking and why, and which leg they're going to be in the sequence. Should we need a third leg or a couple of our first legs go to a second, then we can entertain Rockets Jazz. We can look at making the Heat Blazers a second leg, etc. But for now, I like these picks. And more so, I wanted to get those narratives out to you guys. The Doc Rivers, the Lakers Nets trade, you know how I feel about the teams like the Blazers, the Knicks, the teams that they're pushing. And then the other one that I thought was interesting was this quote fight that led to the first ejection ever by the calmest guy in the league outside of Steven Adams, which would be Klay Thompson. I think, again, that's nothing more than WWE fighting. So when the playoffs happen, everyone's going to be excited to see Booker match up against Klay Thompson. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. It's nothing earth-shattering, but I did find it interesting. And as the season develops, we're going to have more obvious narratives. But I wanted to get every pick out there in case I fall asleep and miss the games again or something. And I also wanted to just point out some stuff that I noticed between Luka and some of the top stars in the league. And if you guys notice stuff too, like I said, always please leave it in my Discord. Leave it in a comment. Or if you think I'm wrong on something, say, no, dumbass, you're wrong because this happens. There's no egos here. This is all about being a think tank so we can just try and get ahead of the narrative. So I hope you guys weren't expecting too much. I just wanted to go into what I know so far. Going into Thursday, I'm going to have that video out tonight or first thing in the morning. We're going to play, of course, the Brady Lamar show. That's going to be fun to watch. But I figured we'd stick with football. There's no hockey or basketball. There's no hockey tonight. There's one game, and I didn't feel like just betting one random game. It was a couple. If I do play the Ducks, I'll post it on my community. I'll just post who I'm picking. There's a reason I might take the Ducks with the spread, and I'll explain why in my post. But it's not something I'm jumping out of my way to play. I mostly wanted to go over the narratives and who I think is going to win tonight, because earlier on a few games I was a little tossed and I didn't want there to be any confusion. So everything that I showed you in my notepad is who I'm going with, and take care and happy earnings.